Hi babes, welcome to my channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Abby. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always coming back. Today, I am doing something a little bit different. As you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about grief. And this is the start of a new series I want to start, and it's something that I've talked about months ago on this channel and hinted at, but have not come around to sitting down and recording or talking about it. Before we get into all of that, though, I just want to say if it's your first time stumbling across my channel, it is likely because of the title. That is likely because you are experiencing a grief period of your life. And I just want to say I'm really sorry for whatever loss that you are experiencing. It is definitely not easy. It has been one of the hardest times of my life, one of the most painful times of my life. And no, you are not being dramatic. It is really fucking hard. So I just want to say I'm sorry. And I hope that this video helps you in some way, shape, or form. I know when I first entered this period of my life, it was something that I was looking for, guidance, connection, somebody to tell me that it was going to be okay, that I was going to be okay, because it felt far from that. So again, I'm sorry. I hope that this video helps. So I want to start by introducing myself and introducing my story, my grief. I briefly touched on it. If you've been around, if you've been a subscriber, a few months back, I had posted a video that where I was announcing that I was moving to New York City. And I briefly touched on this there. But for all the new watchers, I wanted to say hello. My name is Abby. I'm originally from San Diego. Have spent the last 5 years of my life in Los Angeles, and I'm currently physically in New York City now. I've only been here about 5 months now, and the reason I ended up here was because of all of this going on in my life. So earlier this year, I lost my mom. In fact, it was in January, so literally right at the start of the year. As you can imagine, and if you're also going through this period of life, it's tough. And to start the year off like this was even harder. She was very young. She was 46 years old. We lost her very traumatically and very quickly and unexpected. I won't go into details because it's personal and it's not really a story I really want to share and get into details with. But just know, as any other death, it wasn't easy. To tell you a little bit about myself and my connection to her, so I was her firstborn. I am the eldest daughter. And she had me at 17, just freshly 18. So that was my bestie. I was very much attached to her hip for the longest time. The last 10 years, even though we didn't live together, that was still my best friend. I told her everything, and yeah, just that is the relationship that I had with her. I never felt like I had to hide anything from her. And when she passed, I didn't feel like there was anything that I regretted doing, not doing, or wish I would have told her. Because again, we were very much an open book with each other. Now we are in November, which means I'm about to hit the 10-month mark since her loss, which means a year since her loss is inching closer, and I cannot begin to express how awful that feels. Not only is it anxiety inducing, But I feel like the closer we get to the date, the more I'm starting to relive our final moments, the more I'm beginning to have flashbacks. So if you're a few weeks in, a month in, you just entered this period of your life, just know that 10 months in, some things feel easier, but all in all, the pain is still the same. So before coming to New York City, I was pretty much living for the most part full time with my family. That was my dad, my siblings. So living at home with them and going to LA, back to my apartment in LA every so often. But for the most part, I was with my family. That was exactly what I needed. I couldn't stand being alone the first few months. So obviously family time and just being surrounded by them, especially the people closest to me who were also experiencing this loss, was my primary support in this period. I wanted to touch on the things that kind of helped me in the beginning. And I wouldn't say helped me overall in the sense of like feeling better, but they pushed me to keep getting up every single day. And really, again, if you are just entering this period of your life, if all you do every day is get up, wake up, that is enough. That is really all you have to give. Now, I want to preface by saying everybody's grief experience and journey is very different. The way everybody handles it is very different. So, everything I'll be speaking on today is very much my experience and some of the things that helped me. So, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the first few weeks and the first month or two, I was mostly spending it at home. What that looked like was often sometimes just laying in bed crying, cuddling with my sisters, just talking to my sisters about the whole thing. And that is something that I think is very helpful and was very helpful for me, was living in community with obviously my family, but these are also the people who were experiencing the loss of the same person, maybe not necessarily in the same way, but we're all experiencing the loss of a mother or the loss of a partner. And so that allowed us to really be open and honest and have conversations about the entire process, from beginning to end, reliving moments, recounting things and emotions and feelings. And that's not usually necessarily something that you can do with a friend, even a close friend, because they didn't experience this firsthand the way that you did. So I think if you have the privilege to have siblings or or another parent or another person in your life who went through the exact same loss, I would say stay close to them and open yourselves up to have these conversations. I know that they're hard and they're painful. It's painful even to this date to recount some of these moments. But I think having the conversations and talking about it and crying about it, expressing yourself about how you feel in the moment and how you felt in those moments was very helpful for me, and just in the end made me stronger. And now I'm at a point where I can actually sit down and talk to somebody about these things without bawling. And that's not to say that, I never do. I definitely do. Just last night, I cried myself to sleep because I was unfortunately having flashbacks to my last day with my mom, and that's just what it is. That is what our brain does, unfortunately. And again, it isn't much easier 10 months in than it was in the beginning, but it is easier, I think, to come back to yourself and come back to the present moment. But it is, I think, helpful to have these conversations through the beginning of your grief experience. Now, outside of this, we did acknowledge that we needed to step out of the home, get some fresh air. As much as in these moments we didn't want to nor care to do these things, we were often going on walks. We are from San Diego, so we were often going on walks by the beach, on hiking trails. And really, that's all we really had the energy for in this moment, is like going for walks at the beach, sitting in the sand. And over time, that eventually developed to going on bike rides and pushing ourselves to be outside more. Going back to the point of, having conversations with the people who are also experiencing this loss with you, I think it's important to identify your support system for this period of your life. And I say that because the people who have once in the past been your support system may not necessarily be your support system in this period. And that's not to say, F them, they're not part of your life, because that's definitely not what I'm saying. But there's certain people that I think during this time are easier to converse with, or easier to exist with, really. And so, for example, in my case, the people identified as my support system were, of course, my siblings. So that's my two sisters, my brother, and my dad, because those are the four people that were going through the same exact loss as I am. Now, apart from them, that was also my mom's two sisters and her mom. It was the seven of us going through every part of this entire process, from the beginning of my mom's health decline all the way down to the day we lost her. It was the seven of us who were there every single day, early mornings, late nights at the hospital, in a sense, hoping, but also waiting for my mom to leave. And we all went through these motions and this life experience together. And I think that helped me identify these people as my support system, because, again, these seven people are the people that I'm able to be in conversation with about whatever and whenever, because we're all going through the same emotions. Apart from these seven people, I also have my two best friends, which you've seen on the vlogs quite a bit. And I identified those people as part of my support system, probably because even though they weren't physically there through the entire experience of my mom's loss, they were the people outside of my family who I was talking to on a daily basis, who were checking in on me every single day, from the moment my mom got ill to the moment we lost her, and beyond that. So I would say those are the two people that, outside of my family, I identified as my support system. But even though I did identify them as part of my support system, I will say after the loss of my mom, it took me a couple weeks to actually be in conversation with them, because, of course, after this happens, sometimes you just don't have the energy to talk to anybody, especially anybody who didn't experience the same exact thing that you did. So if that is how you're feeling towards some of your best friends, that's okay. Take your time. Also, during this time, after losing your person, you will likely be experiencing an influx of messages, and kind messages, that is, which are, I think, necessary, and I felt a lot of gratitude for them. But it can be overwhelming, and that's not to say, again, I wasn't thankful for all those messages. I definitely was. But just know that you are not required to respond immediately. You are allowed to take your time to respond. You're allowed to decide when you're ready to talk to somebody or not. And the people who respect that, you will come to see that they are the people that are meant to be in your life, and the people who cannot respect that or see it as anything else than that don't need a place in your life. Now, on that note, death, loss, grief, all of this will shine light on the people who are meant to be in your life and who are not meant to be in your life. It'll show you who is there to support you, who might be just like a side character. Maybe you thought that they were somebody like a main character in your life, and now after this experience, you now think, you know what, they were just a side character. That's valid. All of that stuff comes to light. Not just that, but also your values and things that you find important, and the things that you find are worthy of your time and your presence. All of that will come to light. Maybe this isn't everybody's experience, but from my experience, in the beginning, I felt like a shitty person, like something was wrong with me. But now, obviously, I recognize, hey, this thing is a major life change. It's life changing, and that comes with also changes in your brain and in the way that you think and the way that you go about your life and how you handle things and all of these things. So if you're feeling that way, just know nothing is wrong with you. All of these changes can be hard in the beginning, but just know that they're there for a reason. They've come to light for a reason, and be easy on yourself. So the next thing that I want to touch on, now that we've talked about the first few stages of grief and what it looked like for me and what it might look like for you, I want to talk about the things that have helped me now being 10 months into this grief, things that have helped me, the things that I've learned, and maybe some of the things that you can take into practice. So going back to what I said in the beginning, the number one thing that I wrote down was allow yourself to feel and do nothing. I feel like if this is where you are at, if this is all that you have the capacity to do, give yourself the permission to do that. Do not force yourself to go beyond what you can do just because you feel like it's what you should be doing, if that makes sense. I've always been very much a go-getter, very on the go, goal-oriented. And so this is something that I really found difficult in the beginning, is just being still and allowing myself to do nothing because it felt like I was being unproductive. I had a rude awakening. This is grief, and sometimes grieving is a lot of work. It actually is a lot of work. So allowing yourself to do nothing and just feel is okay. Some of the things that I've started doing in the last few months that have been helpful, and I'm going to preface by saying it took me a while to get to this point because I didn't want to face certain emotions. So that has been journaling. I have been journaling actually since high school. I've kept journals pretty consistently since then. So it's not something new in my life that I picked up during this period of time. But it's definitely something that I left behind, I would say, for the first 4 months of my grief, because of the reason of not wanting to feel certain emotions or wanting to recount or relive things. But sometimes these things need to be released. And if you are not talking to somebody physically, there's nothing better than writing it down and still releasing it, because these emotions that you're feeling, they keep trapping, they need to come out. And that is the hard truth. So stop keeping those in. They need to come out. So journaling. And then another thing that I started doing that was new was writing letters to my mom. And that is thanks to one of my aunts, my mom's sister. She actually got me a notebook to write letters to my mom because I was having such a hard time after moving away from home and being far away from everybody and just handling grief on my own. which I'll probably tap into in another video, or maybe somewhere in here I'll squeeze it in. But I started writing letters to my mom. That was helpful, apart from journaling, because essentially it's the same idea. I'm still writing out all of my emotions, but I kind of separated the two in a way of journaling was me expressing everything that I felt, and I almost turned journaling into talking to God, if that made sense. And then my letters to my mom was another form of journaling, but I was talking directly to my mom. So, say I'm missing my mom, I go in there and like, hey mom, I miss you. These are the things that reminded me of you today. If I have a random memory about her or about something from when I was a kid or whatever the case is, I go in there and I write to her to tell her about it. I kind of started to look at it in the way that if it was something that in life, if she was still here, that I would call her to tell her, I'm going to write it down in a letter form to her. Now, another thing I think that's helpful is documenting your grief experience and your grief journey. For me, I think both journaling and the letters to my mom have been great documentation of this, because it's something that it's all out in there and I can go back and look at later in life. But also, I started this YouTube channel in March, which was 2 months after I lost my mom. My mom actually was big on documenting. She had so many videos she loved creating on TikTok, and I think that was one of the things that inspired me. And it's like, it was so lovely to have all these things that she left behind after she passed, and being able to go through her camera roll and all the videos that she documented, and not just in present moment or in the moments prior to her passing, but also going back to watch old home videos on VHS, and she was documenting the smallest things, but just knowing that she was there with us and she was documenting the things that she felt were happy moments for her, that even if she wasn't in the frame, they were important to her. I would say that definitely inspired me to go back to the idea of documenting, and not only for others to relate to and to experience, but for one day when I am no longer here, there's proof of my life here. Prior to YouTube, I have been on TikTok for quite some time, and honestly, at this and even to this moment, I haven't had the desire to create on TikTok the way I have been here on YouTube, or the way that I did in the past. That's totally okay. But I found myself on grief talk, and that can be both helpful and also a little bit hurtful. But I definitely want to encourage it in the sense of finding people that you can relate to during this period of your life. For example, the one creator that I'm thinking about right now that I found pretty early on in my grief journey was an account called Sincerely Paloma. And this is a creator who lost her mom 2 years ago. And she created the series Voicemails to Her Mom, where she's essentially leaving a voicemail to her mom, catching her mom up on her life. And I just found that so healing, because one, it's something that I realized I can put this into practice, and essentially I'm doing that with my letters to my mom. But it also helped realize that all of the pain that I was feeling and all of the things that I was experiencing during this grief journey, I wasn't alone. The people who are also, or who have also gone through this pain, are also going through the same motions. Helps you feel more human, I guess, more okay, and reassures you that this is normal. The things, the behaviors, the feelings are normal. Now, the next few things I'm going to mention, these are things that have come later down the road for me. And so the first thing is therapy. I had previously been in therapy for about 2 years. And then in February, I stopped. That was kind of out of my control. I also, during the time that I lost my mom, I also lost my job, which meant I lost my health insurance. So, kind of was able to talk to my therapist for a bit at the beginning of my loss, but then for the next 6 months, essentially just faced it on myself. And I wanted to wait to get to a point where I felt that I was ready to come to somebody and talk to them about my pain. So I went back to therapy about 6 to 7 months after losing my mom. And now that's part of my weekly routine and very thankful for it. Again, I think it depends on the person and the way that you feel. Like I said, it took me a while to get to a point where I felt like I was ready to talk to somebody or like I wanted to talk to somebody. So if that's the case, that's okay. If you're somebody who wants to talk to your therapist immediately, that's great too. But I would say therapy has been very helpful because although I have my support system and my best friends and all these people to talk to about my experiences and my grief, there are some things that maybe you don't want to share because they're so intimate. And sometimes, like, for example, for me, it felt like I was telling my friends and my loved ones the same things over and over. And even though I know these people love me and they're willing to hear me out, I think, I didn't want to drown them with the same thing over and over. So I figured, hey, I think this is a great time to look to a therapist and allow yourself to unpack everything that you have inside and that maybe your loved ones can't necessarily help you with. They're willing to listen, but a therapist is not only going to listen, they're going to help you through navigating these emotions. Now, the next thing is routines. Prior to grief and loss, I've been very much a routine girl. I thrive on routine. It is what helps me get through every day and just stay organized. So I think, again, keeping in mind, it takes a while to get to a place where you feel like doing anything. And I think when you do get to the point where you realize, hey, I don't want my life to just be this sadness all the time, I would say look to routines, look to setting a routine. And honestly, that is what has helped me get back to living, I guess. Now, granted, I mentioned earlier in the video that I was laid off earlier on in the year. 3 months into my grief, a job opportunity came up in New York City, which is why I'm here now. So I'm here for 6 months. I've now been here for 5 months. And it hasn't been easy, to say the least. And I feel like I'll eventually get into that in another video, just talking about that experience, because I think that was a unique experience where ideally I wouldn't move across the country in the middle of grief. But for whatever reason, the opportunity came and presented itself to me, and in a time where I needed direction and I needed routine. I felt lost. I took it. So that kind of forced me to get back into routine. So going back to work, setting time to work out, setting time to make meals, and do all these things that you allowed yourself to just kind of dip from during the hardest time of your life. I think when you get to the point where you're ready, routines will definitely be very helpful. And then the last thing I will say, and I think this is a general thing that can be applied to the beginning, the middle, and not to say that there's steps to this journey, because I think it's going to be a lifelong journey, and that's something that is a very hard pill to swallow, but it is the reality. It will be a lifelong journey, especially in instances like myself where I lost my mother, the person who brought me into this world, who made me the person that I am today. But this can apply in any stage of your grief, is to allow people to help. I have never been great at asking for help in general. So to ask for help during this time, not much easier. But if you're lucky, you will have people in your life who want to help you, who will offer to help you. And sometimes don't even ask, they just do. And I think that if you are lucky enough to have those people in your life, definitely allow these people to show up for you and do the things that you feel like you can't do. For example, in the beginning, I didn't have the energy to cook. My family didn't have the energy to cook. And so a lot of people in our community, in our support systems, they were showing up for us in that way by cooking for us and bringing us meals and dropping off meals while we were at the hospital. Then after my mom passed, bringing meals to us every few nights, and just making sure that we are fed. Because if you are currently going through it, if you've gone through it, you will know that even the easiest mundane day-to-day life things are so much harder after you experience loss. So yeah, allow people to help. That's all I'll say about that for now. And I feel like I was pretty brief about each thing. And I think eventually I want to go into depth with some of these things again. But for the sake of not letting this video go on and on longer than it needs to, I'm gonna call it there. I'm going to leave it at that, and hopefully some of these things can help you on your journey. If you're somebody currently going through grief and you have questions, again, I'm also currently going through my first year of this grief, and I'm learning along the way. But if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section and I'll get back to you, or I'll address it in the next video. If there's certain topics you want me to touch on this, let me know also in the comments. But yeah, there's definitely a lot I can go into depth with here and just talk more about my experience 10 months in and what it looks like as, especially right now. I'm about to go into my first holiday season without my mom. Not only that, but right after the holiday season, I am going to experience the 1 year anniversary of my mother's death. And I know that that's going to come with so many more challenges. And they always say the first year is the hardest. But again, this is a lifelong journey. And if I can help at least one person by talking about this and this very hard time of our lives that unfortunately we will all have to experience at one point in our life, then I want to share my experience and I want to talk about these things and open up conversation to it. I hope that even if this is not something that you can currently relate to right now, I hope that you still enjoyed, hearing about the journey. Because like I just mentioned, we will all have to go through this at one point or another, and maybe it'll look different. It won't always be the loss of a parent. I've unfortunately gone through many losses in the last few years, and that was a grandmother and two uncles and a great grandmother, and every single one of those losses has looked different. If you're watching this and you know somebody who might benefit from hearing these things or might benefit from this conversation, I encourage you to send this to them and with love and, hope that it helps them on their journey. I'm going to leave it there. I'm excited to dive deeper within this series and keep it going, which is something that I told myself once I put out this first video, we are committing to the series. So expect more to come. But I hope that you enjoyed or found this helpful. as the first part of this grieving diary series. I'll catch you guys in the next video.